From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. You're now 2 weeks away from Halloween, and you haven't picked out a costume. Surprise your friends this year by showing up for the party as Nick and Jim from Pod Therapy. The Pod Therapy costume kit comes with all you'll need to pull off the perfect look, including 2 microphones, 2 sets of headphones. Show up looking like Nick with a leather wrist bracelet made by a hippie and a V-neck t-shirt 2 sizes too small. Or impress your friends with this Jim costume, complete with a glue-on Abe Lincoln beard and a Cheeto-stained Carolina Panthers jersey. Supplies are limited. Order yours today.
Those are Doritos.
And now broadcasting from the churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. Time for some Pod Therapy.
It's funny.
Those costumes available at Mervin's.
And they're on clearance.
Yes.
I remember one of my favorite bits that you did, I think it was an opening bit, was you were saying that people often confuse who we are, and like they don't know which guy we are, and you were like, let's settle this forever. I'm the white guy with the beard and glasses. Jim's the other white guy with the beard and glasses. And like you added one extra thing or something like that. It was like, let's get it right. So we've got friends in the studio with us, which joined us in the Patreon bit, but we want to reintroduce everybody to get them back on the record. That way folks know who is with us in the regular recording. So we'll start on my right and we'll work all the way down. And the first gentleman to my right, who are you, sir?
I'm Scoopitor Ascending, or Blake.
We've lost you in the ears.
I cannot hear me.
Right now.
Now try it again.
I'm Scoopitor Ascending.
Hey, welcome back, Scoopitor. And you've written into the show a bunch of times.
I have.
Longtime supporter of the show. Glad to have you here in Vegas.
I'm glad to be here.
And pass the mic to your side there. We'll introduce the lady to your right.
Hi, I'm Sara.
Hi, Sara.
Also Scoopy Doo.
Oh, you're Scoopy Doo.
Yeah.
Oh, I super admire your Scoop name. Because I remember when I was like searching, I was like, I'm going to see if that one's available. And of course it was gone. Mm-hmm. You're the one.
I think there's actually 2 of them. I just put the 2 words together, and I think the other one has them apart.
Spaced them?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's probably like 700 Scooby Doo _1_3.
Yeah.
It's too good. It's too good not to have. So thank you for joining us. And you're from California.
Yes, I am.
Northern Cali. Very good.
Northern Cali.
Visiting Vegas for the weekend and the week. Very good to have you. And you've sampled a couple of shows of Pod Therapy, and so hopefully now that you're on this one, you'll listen to this one too.
Yeah. Hopefully.
We'll see if we can rope you in. That's how we're expanding our audience, one person at a time, by just putting them on the show. And there's only like 330 million humans, so in our nation. So
effective.
I don't want to offend.
I'll probably listen.
The Canadians or the Australians, or like our 3 English people. So then we'll jump over here to this gentleman.
I'm Nathan's Hotdog Scoop.
Yeah, you are TheraProducer extraordinaire.
The boss.
The boss is here, so we're not getting fired today. At least he told me in the parking lot that's not going to happen.
There's no quorum.
There's no
we'll
quorum.
Sort it out next time.
He's here to do some inspecting. He'll get back to the board. This is impromptu quality inspection.
When is the next board meeting?
Yeah, that's right. Whenever they all show up in
Virginia. It's going to need to
Virginia.
be quick. The list is getting long.
Well, we're so glad to have you, and you've offered us demands in the past during your TheraProducer segments. Good demands, I'll note. They've been pretty damn good. Some really memorable, funny ones, as well as some very heartfelt and endearing ones. And today, before the show started, you gave us liquor. So whatever bad things happened during today's episode, Nathan's Hotdog Scoop is directly responsible. So, I mean, the board already has good reasons to get rid of us.
The boss did tell you you're allowed to drink on the
That's
job.
right. Yeah, that's
We're not going to say no.
What was I going to do? Say no? Like, he's the boss. I feel like I should have done that. So pass the mic over, and we will introduce... this is actually a very good time, now that we're talking about being drunk doing therapy. This is our lawyer. Who are you, sir?
Hey, I'm Leon Kassab.
Yeah, Leon is also in our fantasy football league, and he is borderline of scrimmage. That's one of the best damn names. And this week you're playing against TheraPod Andrea,
yes, sir.
who was on our show a couple of weeks back. And so you're looking good this week. It looks like you're actually you're gonna take her out.
I think I'm gonna.
How are you doing in the league? Are you kind of like 50-50, or are you?
No, I'm 5-1 right now.
Oh my gosh, are you really?
5-1.
Holy cow! Wow,
yeah, somewhere around there. I've had 1 loss to Nick.
Wow.
Yep.
Nick's about to have another loss, and that's to me. So
not going to happen.
Nick is definitely winning.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I can't wait for you both to have to eat those words. I'm going to tweet this, and I'm going to tag you. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, you always talk a big game right before the results come in, and then later.
That's when you talk a big game.
Yeah, and
Should
then,
I talk a week afterward?
No. But then I guess what I'm saying is, then when you lose, then it's like, oh yeah,
crickets.
I know I owe you sushi. I'll get you later.
I totally paid my debts. You've both gotten your
Months
sushi
later.
Yes, it's on a payment plan.
I didn't get you sushi.
Oh yeah, you didn't.
He got money. That was as good as sushi.
Which is not what the bet was, but whatever.
Sit here and feed him sushi.
I think it demonstrates
all I
pattern
wanted.
behavior.
I think it does too.
I always become the subject of this show. Speaking of which, it's Sober October.
It is.
Any of you guys doing any Sober October stuff with us? Anybody being good?
I mean, I've been good for years.
Yeah,
trying
that's
to
right,
lose weight.
As Nathan's drinking some liquor right now. I think he just relapsed on the show. Fantastic. Great job, Nate. So are you doing good with your sugar rush?
I am actually. I'm doing pretty good. Well, okay, so I was saying pre-show that I was at a conference or at a training earlier. And I've noticed one of my weaknesses is when I go to a training, because they always have like the food. You know, they always have like the snacks out and everything.
Donuts and
And I'm back
The
into
buffet.
the buffet. Yeah.
I'm back into the intermittent fasting, so I didn't have anything up until noon.
Okay.
You know, but then afternoon is when they bring out the cookies.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
that was a trigger for me.
Yeah, to keep everybody
and
awake.
I was like, oh, I can't, you know. And then I was texting Laura. I was like, they got cookies out, and this sucks, and I really want a cookie.
Nice.
But I told her, I was like, but I've been able to, you know, curb the craving by eating bananas.
Okay.
And she's like, that's the most sugar-filled fruit there is. And I'm like, oh, damn, it is. And I looked it up. It's like 42 grams of sugar in
It's
a banana.
popsicle.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm like on my third banana.
I'm so proud of myself right now. I'm
So-
just eating this banana dipped in pixie sticks. No cookies for me.
Some people call it nature's Snickers bar.
That's right.
Yeah, my wife has always called it the bacon of fruit. Around our house.
It is.
Yeah.
That's so true. So yeah, I had
mixed results is kind of what
had
I'm
that
hearing.
little lapse, but otherwise I've been doing really good.
Okay.
I knew a woman in Vegas here who was a dancer, and she went on a diet and started referring to herself as a fruitarian. She only ate fruit. And she was just furious as to why she was not only not losing weight, but gaining weight on this fruit-only diet.
Oh, my God.
And we had to explain to her, like, it's just sugar. It's naturally occurring sugar.
That's how
in
they
fruit.
get the animals to eat the seeds.
Yeah, like you're just eating sugar and water, basically.
Oh, my
You're
gosh.
a hummingbird.
A fruitarian.
You're a chubby hummingbird.
That's it. So I think what I'm learning from both of you is I shouldn't pivot toward that diet, the banana only.
No, that's
fruit
not the
diet.
way to go.
Okay.
But other than that,
Only phallic-shaped
yeah.
food.
That would be great if Nick just started listing things like I've been eating, bananas, cucumbers, popsicles, sausages by the boatload, guys.
Unripe squash. Tuber potatoes.
I've been doing really good.
aside from that, I've been doing good. Like
Okay.
I've been avoiding all the stuff, like all the cravings that I have. I just been kind of muscling through those.
Well, yeah, I'm
doing
impressed.
good.
You used to come in here with like your basically Nesquik chocolate coffee,
Yeah.
and lately
or
you're
a
coming in
Monster
with the
Energy
caffeine.
drink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. That's as healthy as you generally are. I have never understood the Monster thing.
Yeah,
like
I
as
know.
long as I've known you, I've seen you pop those open. And I'm like, dude, that's turpentine. Like
Yeah,
that
it's-
is the worst thing you could consume.
And they're nasty.
oh, they're disgusting.
Yeah.
Unless they sponsor the show, in which case I'm all for it.
No, they're nasty.
Also, they work really well as a cleaner. Have you
Yeah.
seen those videos?
No.
Like somebody
They
like
get
had
like paint off of concrete.
no, like grease off of like a
Oh my gosh.
a stainless steel
Oh,
table.
no.
There's some guy, he was in his shop and he had like this grease and he was using all this grease cleaner and stuff and couldn't get it off. And he's like, watch this. And he poured Monster Energy drink with a sponge.
Just
like
wipes
shiny,
it off.
Just
Oh,
completely shiny.
rips the paint off the chrome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and you've
It's
always
terrible.
just drank it. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
man, of all the things.
Well, I know that at least Louisiana State Police, when I was young, they used to carry jugs of the Coca-Cola.
Oh,
like,
that's
light,
right.
It wasn't the fully diluted Coca-Cola syrup like
Right.
you get out of a soda machine.
It was like
but
the
it was
syrup.
like lightly diluted Coca-Cola syrup.
Yep.
And that's what they would use to do things like clean blood
Yes.
off of pavement.
I have heard of that. I have heard of that.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's so
Because it would
crazy.
fizz enough, and it does its kind of own cleaning, and then you just rinse it off.
Oh.
Well, what
That's
doesn't kill you
terrifying.
makes you stronger, right?
Yeah. I think that's the entire point of Sober October.
Someone should write a song about it.
It feels like that's so true.
So for October.
yeah, that's where I was
what you
going
meant?
with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing?
I am doing pretty good, man. So last time around, we did that homework of identifying vulnerable times. Like you talked about unavoidable risks, like situations that you can't get out of, and then avoidable ones that you can steer away from. And so that was a huge asset to me, and so I really spent a lot of time doing that. So, and it's funny because you and I have been actually texting back and forth accountability. Whenever there's been a sports game on, there was our Golden Knights game that was on. I think it was on Friday or something, or Thursday. And you texted me and you were like, "Hey, what are you eating?" Because it's sports, like
game's on.
And I had a bowl of grapes, and I texted you back a picture of like me eating a bowl of grapes. And so like I got ahead of it. So like I had a bowl of grapes, and I had I didn't end up getting veggie straws or veggie chips, but I just had like grapes or things like that. And I had salad that same day. Like I just got a bag of salad and just made a big bowl of salad, and like so that was something, But I just had to have something munchy. And like the croutons in there and the salad just gave me something to munch. Right. So that was good. And so I actually ended up doing really good this week. Watched a ton of sports, and I did not go bad. Almost every day this week. I think there was one day that I went above 1,500 calories, and I think I landed at like 1,700. Last night was kind of date night, and so we usually will get like some late night munchies, that kind of thing. So we probably went over 50. I haven't added it up, but it probably was over it, but probably under 2,000. Okay. And every other day under 1,500. So really, really good.
So better this week than last week.
Huge, yeah,
Great.
Huge difference. Yeah, the little line went up, and I'm pleased to announce, as of this morning, I have lost 4 pounds.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Since this morning, you've lost 4 pounds?
Meth really helps. I'm not eating a lot.
Terrible diarrhea.
Also, I have dysentery, so that has really helped. I'm noticing.
Got some Mexican water shipped in.
That's right. I just started drinking that, so everything's been really great. And I've just, been on the toilet, 12 hours a day, but, lost a lot of weight. So I've lost 4 pounds.
That's awesome.
And, and it's interesting, too, because, and I've heard this in the past, and I think I've seen this in my own body, whenever you are sort of artificially above really what is a natural weight for you, the pounds sort of fly off in the beginning. And I'm noticing it, but I'm having a weird kind of mental shift about it. Because on one hand, it's like, oh my God, I lost 4 pounds. Like, that's validating. But it's weird for me because it also has this sense of like, I don't trust it. It was too easily. Like there's that old quote, that which is too easily gained is too lightly esteemed. And like, I didn't feel like I worked for it. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't do anything. Like I just ate better. And like I dropped 4 pounds and I'm like, that's nice, but oh God, I could probably get it all back in like a bad day.
Okay.
So I don't feel very far from it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Even though that was a good thing, but like I don't feel good about it. Like I feel like scared of it.
This is very important because this actually leads into today's A block.
I will be damned.
Oh, it's almost like we planned this out.
No, I really didn't plan it out. What is the?
I know you didn't plan it out because you don't plan anything.
I didn't read anything.
It must be nice to just show up on a Sunday to record a podcast and have put no work into it.
It's fantastic.
Hey,
I lost 4 pounds, bitch. You're eating bananas.
Okay, all right.
I'm doing a good job.
Anyway, today, positive self-talk and cognitive reframing.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
the topic.
There it is.
Okay.
That's exactly
So one of the things that we want to explore when you're going through these changes is you want to be able to identify self-defeating thoughts.
Yeah.
So I'm using the term self-defeating thoughts because it could be a lot of different things. One of the things that we did in the first lesson, if you remember, was identifying high-risk thinking patterns.
Yeah.
Right? So we identified those in week 1, but then we didn't really do anything with them. Mm-hmm. So now we want to kind of come back and we want to focus on those. And they're going to tie into the emotional piece as well, because our thoughts and our emotions are tied together, right? So self-defeating thoughts could be any thought that is either going to be a trigger to return to old behavior.
Okay.
Or it is a thought that promotes this negative way of thinking or promotes a negative belief system that's going to drive you back to the old behavior.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'm hearing you say with this is that you're identifying having thoughts that are like, well, this isn't going to last, or too easily gained, too easily lost.
Right.
And or I'm not making progress fast enough.
Yes. That's a big one too. Like even though 4 pounds, you think, well, that's pretty good, and it also depends on your frame. Like I mean, sure. I was at 236, I think, when I started this. So like, on that frame, like you can lose 4 pounds, but you don't notice anything.
Right.
You know, and so and that will happen. I've noticed that in the past is I'll oscillate generally in life by about 10 to 12 pounds and just go up and down. And I always am wearing the same clothes. Like, I don't have to change sizes. Nobody notices. Nobody says anything like, oh, you know, and I don't notice. And that's a big part of it too. Like I weighed in this morning and, you know, so I'm getting ready or whatever. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I don't expect there to be a difference. Like, I look identical or still unhappy, you know? So I look at it, I'm like, I got a long way to go. And then I step on the scale, it's like 4 pounds, but it didn't feel like victory. Right. It didn't feel like I did anything. Like, I wasn't even that proud of it. I was like, okay, but who knows? That's probably nothing, you know?
So these thoughts can appear in a couple different ways, because in one way, they're kind of appearing in your overall belief system about what you're doing and not making enough progress.
Right.
These thoughts can also appear in a much smaller way, which is just kind of those micro thoughts that you have when linking to an old behavior.
Right.
Like, I'm watching a game, oh man, a cheeseburger would be really good right now. Or, a pizza would be really good right now.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So having those thoughts, that euphoric recall, all of that, there's a lot of different ways that it can appear. Yeah. So I guess we should probably talk first with some of the, I guess the first thing, if we're going to make progress, if we're going to get to cognitive reframing or cognitive restructuring, we have to first be able to identify the thought.
Okay.
And that's the thing that most people struggle with.
Is even figuring that out.
Yeah, even recognizing that thought as being destructive.
Yeah.
Right? Because thoughts can become thought patterns, and we have them so quickly that it becomes habitual.
Yes.
Right? So you don't even recognize that you're having that thought.
Okay, so let me throw one out there that I think is true.
Okay.
And I think that, and this isn't just this week, it's more like when I think about my lived history. So like I said, I oscillate up and down like 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. So in this case, here I am down 4. A, I don't feel like it's a victory, but B, another part of my brain says, psh, that was so easy, dude. You don't even have a problem. Oh, no problem. That was easy. You could probably drop 20 in by this rate, you know, by November 1st. Oh, you're going to be down to like 200 flat, you know, like, psh, this is so simple. And like, I know that's not true. Like, I know that it's not easy. I know it's going to take some work, but I trick myself into thinking, let your guard down. This is a no-brainer. And that's not true.
Okay, so that becomes a destructive thought because why?
Because it results in me letting my guard down. And then what will happen is I'll overeat because I'm like, oh, this is no big deal because look how fast I can lose 4 pounds. So I can have a great cheat day because who cares? I can lose 4 pounds in a week, no big deal. Right. But like, you stack those kinds of failures together and you never lose the weight.
Exactly.
But that's what will happen.
And that's what we see that happen all the time when we worked at the rehab.
Yes.
Right? When people would say like, okay, well, you know what? If I go back and I use just tonight, it's going to be okay. Like nothing bad is going to happen from one use.
Right.
And then
if you get through that one safely, then you convince yourself no big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but then you always you have to counter that thought with, well, when was the last time you used once?
Right. Yeah.
Right? It doesn't happen one time. And that's my issue too with the sugar, right?
Yeah.
Is I can easily get into that pattern of thinking where I'm like, okay, well, I can have, you know, at that training, I can have one cookie. That's not going to throw me off.
Right.
Right? I can do that. Now that is logical.
Right.
That is rational. I'm probably correct. I could have one cookie and it's not going to destroy me.
Right.
It breaks down though when was the last time I've eaten only one cookie?
And that's what happened to me last week. Was I had a great Monday through Thursday. I got to Friday. It was sports day. I binged and mentally telling myself, oh, you can have a great day because look, you did so good Monday through Thursday. But it didn't confine itself to Friday. It spilled over into Saturday, into Sunday. And it was like I gained it all back.
Yeah.
All the calories that I had spared Monday through Thursday came rushing back and I weighed in at the exact same weight. And if you probably would have weighed me on Thursday, I probably had dropped a little bit. And it all came back on in the next 3 days. So when I think about this week, that is a very interesting takeaway, that to identify that thought, as you were saying, we have to first identify the thought. And I know that my thought, it's complex because it can go negative, it can go falsely positive, where I can trick myself. Either way, I'm not accurately seeing the situation. Right. I've dropped 4 pounds. Part of my brain will say, that was so easy, no big deal, you can binge. Part of my brain saying, you've really attained nothing. And there's nothing here to be, proud of, or that you're doing a good job. So, like, both of those play, bedevil me a little bit.
So, going back to that first thought or the second one, I guess, in your case, that thought of it's not that big, or it's I'm not making enough progress.
Right,
This
haven't
is not
done much.
Yeah. Where do you think that's coming from?
That sort of negative reinforcement? Because of the yo-yo. Because I've so often dropped and then gone right back up. Because I've even been down. I remember my lowest weight probably in the last 5 to 6 years. And again, it had to do with my daughter going to the hospital, my anxiety being terrible. But I weighed in at like 190 at one point, or 195. And that was the first time I've been under 200 probably since college. And so like, because I have that memory, anything between the weight I'm at and that number doesn't feel real. So like if I lose 4, it's like, well, you can gain that right back. You gain back 50. Like you can gain this back in a second. So don't believe in it. Don't get too excited because this could all be taken away.
Okay. So now let's get into cognitive reframing.
Yeah.
So if we're going to restructure that, essentially what we want to do is we want to take these thoughts and we want to make them something that is going to be helpful for us in pursuit of our goal.
Yes.
Right. So how can you take that thought and
kind of
restructure that?
Restructure it.
Reframe it so that it is a helpful thought.
Right. Well, 4 pounds is 4 pounds. As you often say, take the thought to court.
Right.
Because your fear is nothing's been achieved. Okay, convince a judge. That nothing's been achieved. And they say, okay, do we have, I don't know, a measurement of some kind? And it's like, well, yes, judge, 4 actual pounds is off the dude. And last time he didn't do a good job at this program and he didn't lose 4 pounds. So there's evidence. There's an evidence of the pattern, right? And it is not normally humanly possible to drop 50 pounds, in a week. So 4 pounds is relatively acceptable, and good job. So the trend, the data is pointing in a positive direction. So I have to take that evidence for what it is.
Right. So that saying, take the thought to court.
Yeah.
We actually have our pod therapy lawyer in the room with us today.
Yes, so he's here to stop us from saying anything self-incriminating.
So to kind of break that down and explain that, essentially the argument is if I'm presenting a case, I have to provide evidence before.
Right. Not just hearsay, not just feelings.
Exactly.
You can't say, oh, judge, I feel fat. They're going to be like, I need data.
Right.
I need you to show me proof, please.
Yeah, so we want to
You
be
look
able
fat
to...
too.
Thanks, Judge Judy. Now get out of my court.
We need to have evidence to
Glad you
support the argument.
recognized that I was doing a Judge Judy
Yeah.
impression.
She's the only person so mean. I would totally do that. She doesn't care about the others. Get out of here, fatty.
So taking that thought to court, we need to ask, what is the evidence that I have that supports this thought?
Right.
Is there any evidence at all?
Yeah.
If there is evidence, is it just circumstantial evidence,
Right.
or is it actually something that is really pointing to something?
And that's a really good point, too, because if I said, well, Your Honor, this 4 pounds won't matter, won't last, because historically I have regained the weight. Now, I like the taking the thought to court thing, because sometimes we accidentally give the impression that there's no evidence whatsoever against you. There could be.
Right.
But you have to take a preponderance of the facts, right? You have to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so, there is some evidence that I've yo-yoed before. And past behavior is a good predictor of future behavior. However, the fact that somebody has a criminal record doesn't mean they're guilty of this crime.
Exactly.
Or a future crime.
Right.
And so, you do have to take them one day at a time based on their actions now.
Right.
And in the now, I'm behaving in good faith. And so, even though it's possible I could relapse and go backward, and historically that has happened, that you can't pre-crime somebody, right? And so in the same way, I have to tell myself the truth that, Jim, the 4 pounds counts, and let's keep adding to it. You might spike a little bit, but if you stay at it, generally it will work.
Right. And we're also identifying, one of our previous episodes, we talked about cognitive distortions.
Right.
And so one of the cognitive distortions that you just threw in there was predicting the future.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Fortune telling.
Right. So you can't really predict the future. What we know right now is that you lost 4 pounds. That's
Right.
the extent of the information that we have. That's it.
Take it right there. Fortune telling is whenever you tell yourself, I already know what's going to happen, so why try? And in weight loss theory, that is the worst. And in all forms of sobriety, people are like, well, why try? All I'll have is a couple of dry months, and eventually I'll relapse. And if you predict that, then you're never going to change, right? But it's a false identity. That is a cognitive distortion. It's not accurate.
Yeah.
So restructuring it is to identify the thinking error, put it in front of you, which you said a lot of people struggle with, which is even identifying that idea, figuring out why that's inaccurate, figuring out what's distorted about that, understanding why that is going to have a negative impact on you, how that could cause you to fail, and then restructuring it, which is one method of doing that is taking it to court, forcing yourself to look at through the filter of evidence, and then getting to the truth of that.
Right.
Or any of the other interventions that we've talked about in cognitive behavioral therapy, like suggesting to a friend, talking to a friend and saying, hey, what if your friend called you and said, this doesn't count? What would you say to that person? You know?
Right. And that's the next point I want to get to, because the important thing that we want to, so where do these automatic thoughts come from?
Yeah.
Right. An event happens, we have an automatic reaction to it. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
That comes from a belief system.
Right.
So we have developed a belief system based off of past experiences, the way that we view the world, and therefore everything that we view goes through the filter of our belief system, and then we respond with an automatic thought.
Yes.
So the automatic thought may not be rational.
Yeah.
Because we're using it to support a belief system that doesn't fit reality.
Right.
Right? So the example being like, if my belief system is, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm never going to amount to anything, and then I'm in class and I get an A on my chemistry test.
Yes.
My belief system and my reality don't match.
Yes.
Right? So I have to find some way of resolving this conflict in my head.
Yes.
I either change my belief system, which is, oh, maybe I'm not stupid, but our belief system we think of as reality, right? We don't see it as a belief system. We've never even thought to question it.
It just is.
It just is.
Yeah.
So it's hard to change a belief system. It's easier to distort the real world than it is to change the belief system.
I got to tell you, I totally identify with this. And it's so interesting because as I think about my identity, and we've answered questions on the show about your body image identity, some of this intimidates me. Because I remember what it was like to look in the mirror and not remember myself or not feel like I'm looking at the right guy. And even though 4 pounds is literally nothing for me yet, I think back to my past failures and I think, Jim, why are you even trying? Like, this is a fun gimmick for your show. But like, and maybe it'll really help a person who really needed this. But like, we both know you're not going to make it. Like, we both know you're going to finish October. And even if you're down 10 pounds, it'll be back. It'll be back by the end of November. And like, it's so defeating, but as you just said, it's such a belief that I don't even question it.
Right.
It's just true. This is just for funsies, Jim.
Right.
You know, you can never actually sustain this.
So going back to last week, we used the example of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. Oh, that's been huge for me, by the
So
way.
is that Dr. Jekyll talking or is that Mr. Hyde?
Yeah, right.
Like, it seems like that is a thought that would be a Hyde thought because that is a thought that is leading back to the old behavior. Because a big part of your brain doesn't want to change, right? Because we develop a comfort zone around the way that our world already is.
This is just the way it is.
Right?
This is who you are.
Getting out of that, even if we're making positive changes and doing something healthy, it's scary because it's not what we're used to.
Yes.
Right? And this is a concept that a lot of people struggle with is they think that, you know, if I'm going to the gym and I'm working out and I'm eating healthy, you know, I'm bettering my life, but they don't admit that that is scary.
Yeah, that there's change. And change is inherently scary.
Because I was comfortable with the way things were.
Yeah, and I think the last thought I have on that as far as like negative cognitive distortions that I've been kind of doing, shame and guilt I've noticed have been really hard. You know, like even though I don't feel like I, you know, am responsible for mass murder when I overeat a pizza, like I realize that's not it. But it does hit me. And when I look back and I think, dude, why are you trying to, you know, pull this together? Look at what you did in week 1. Like, you had 4 good days, and you got wrecked over the weekend, overeating, you know, way too much. You gained it all back. And like, I'm haunted by that. And so it's very hard for me, I think, when I'm standing in front of that judge, I feel like I should admit to future crimes, or I feel like I deserve to be in jail. And they're like, well, no, you did past things. You are guilty of those things. But that's not who you are. And I'm having such a hard time not wearing an orange jumpsuit in that court and feel like I'm already guilty.
Now, okay, so here's a really good example of how we can use cognitive restructuring, all right? So I'm going to play the counter to that argument.
Okay.
So your argument is that I look at the 4 days that I had all this progress, and then I relapsed into old behavior, I gained it all back, I made no progress whatsoever, and this is the exact same argument that I used in my second response to your second audio clip that you did, which is that that's not a fair comparison, all right? Because the best teacher is failure, right? You will never have a better teacher than failure, right? So when you said I stepped on the scale in the very beginning, I weighed 236.
Right.
I cut down some weight and then I gained it all back, and then a week later I'm at 236. The fault in your thinking is that those 236 are equal. They're not. Because one is 236 with ignorance, and one is 236 pounds with knowledge, experience, and understanding. Right? So you can't say I didn't learn anything or that it was a complete waste just based off of one factor. The only factor you measured was weight.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So you have to look at everything else. Yeah, I lost all this and I gained it all back. Awesome.
You
failed.
Something. Right.
What did you learn?
What did you learn from your
failure? This is one of the best things that
which is
could
a
happen,
future focused
right?
question.
Exactly. So this is the
Don't
same
live in
thing
that
that
past.
like when we worked at rehabs, we'd have repeat customers, right? We'd have people who would come back, and they always come back.
I'm right back where I started.
Yeah, and they're
I'm back at square one.
so shameful, and they won't even look at you in the eye, and they just feel terrible for being back. And I'm like, no, this is exciting. Like we have new data.
Right. Tell us what you've learned.
We've got a whole bunch of more information that we can work with.
Wow.
So what did you learn in this process? Experience is your best teacher.
How did you fail?
Right.
Learn
exactly.
from that defeat.
So we need to take that. That's cognitive restructuring.
And especially with weight loss, because weight loss is there are two types of weight loss. If you want to have a short-term weight loss, then you do kind of the type of thinking and the type of thing that you're doing, which is like, oh, I'm going to take this month and I'm gonna think about this for this month, and here are the rules for this month, and that's it. But what you're doing right now, it sounds to me like you're doing kind of a meshing of the two, which is you're saying like, oh, I do want to have long-term effects, but I'm only thinking about it in terms of this month. So of course I'm gonna fuck up over the long term. Because I'm just thinking about 31 days.
Yeah.
And 31 days is nothing compared to the rest of my life.
Right.
So I mean, with weight loss, you really have to think about it in terms of habit, long-term habits changing. And you have these habits that have built up over years. You don't change those over the course of a few days.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well said. And so, it's coming a long way. And, Scoopitor, you were telling me in the parking lot that you've dropped a lot of weight.
Right. And my big switch was exactly what Jacob was just saying is, because I tell people I have lost and gained thousands and thousands of pounds in my life, right?
Yeah.
Because we do these yo-yo diets and stuff like that, and then you have the same problem that you're talking about.
Right.
The switch this time, though, was treating weight loss like a job. And I made it it is part of me now. Like, I have to go to the gym every day. I have to eat right. And it's a job. There's no vacation days.
Right.
You got to, if I miss a day during the week, I go on the weekend.
Yeah.
I'll go in on the weekend. Yeah, I got to make it up.
Yeah.
And that's coming back to your major theme this week of cognitive reframing, telling ourselves something different, challenging the shame, challenging the guilt. Why? Because they're not helpful. Right? They get you bad results. And this is a question I think you and I have talked to a lot of our patients about. Don't think in right and wrong, helpful and unhelpful.
Yes.
Even a relapse, while not something we should aspire for, can be instructive, and failure can be a great teacher. And don't own that shame because you've committed past crimes. That does not tell you who you are.
Right.
It was something you did. And that you can grow beyond that and be a better person, or not better, but more effective toward your lived goals. And coming back to what Scoopitor just said, a trick that I think I want to start playing with that I've heard about other people doing, they'll change their identity, and they'll do that mentally by saying this: I'm just not the kind of guy who eats donuts.
Yeah.
Like, would you like donuts? No, thanks. Why? I'm not the kind of person that eats sweets.
I just don't do it.
I don't eat sweets.
Yeah.
And it's like, the truth is I could become that guy. But like, if you tell yourself like it's a job, no, I just don't. Would you would you like cheeseburger? Oh no, thanks. I don't eat fast food.
That's exactly what I tell people at work.
Really?
At the show, when because people bring in like sweets and cakes and cookies all the time, and I've just told all of them like, no, I'm not really a sweets guy.
That's it.
And so they don't offer me, because every now and then, like, sure, I'd eat a cookie,
right?
But
just
they
generally,
but they don't offer it to me anymore.
Yeah, and it seeps into your own head. I think you start to mentally just tell yourself, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't crave that. I just don't like sweets.
Yeah.
Or I don't like salt."
Because all it takes is like, oh, there's a tray of cookies there on the desk next to my desk.
Right.
I could have a cookie easily, or I could just go over here and get a glass of water.
Right.
And
if you tell yourself, "I don't like cookies,"
it's just that mental thing.
It's so powerful, dude.
I'll have some water, and that's fine.
When this is done, we need to write a freaking book. because I think we got it. Like, it's so powerful because so many diets are just like, here's the list of rules.
And the great thing is there are no diet books out there. So I mean, we could really just corner the market.
Corner the market.
Yeah. Right. No one's thought of this. But the other thing though too, also changing the mindset of this isn't a diet.
Right.
Right.
This is lifestyle.
Good point.
Right. You're changing what you do. Right.
Yep.
And I think this is something kind of going back to what Scoopitor was talking about is everybody who's successful with this ultimately will find the thing that works for them.
Right.
Right. Scoopitor, I love that analogy. This is my job now. This is what I do.
This is what I do. Yeah.
And, for me, one of the things that I do when it comes to eating healthy and going to the gym, I always look at hardship as being good.
Right. You reframe
like this is
pain or negative things.
Yeah.
As,
pain,
good.
Discomfort.
Right.
This is good.
This is
like
great.
I can't get to my goal without going through discomfort.
Right. Yeah.
So if life gives me no discomfort, that's not a good thing because that means I don't get to my goal.
And that's a reframe.
Exactly. So every time that I run into that obstacle of like, it's leg day. I don't want to go to the gym.
Right.
I hate leg day. I just don't want to do this. There's so many other things I got going on, and I'll start giving myself a million excuses.
Right.
Then I catch myself in that thought, and I'm like, okay, this is what I was talking about.
Right.
And it took me months to get to the point where I love going to the gym now.
Me too.
Now it's like I have to go to the gym to be happy. And then going back to the diet stuff, we've all tried every diet there is, and really the best diet is the diet you stick to.
Yeah,
right.
Which can be anything, and it's really just calories in versus calories out. You know, you can eat 1,000,000 calories of Twinkies.
Yeah.
You're going to gain weight, or you can eat only 1,000 calories of Twinkies and you'll lose weight.
It's just simple math.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is really good, guys.
Who told you about my Twinkie diet?
So it sounds like the homework for this week is to kind of follow some of these suggestions of identifying destructive ways that you're currently cognating or thinking about perspectives and identifying them first, and then go ahead and filter those out so that you can identify a positive restructure of that concept.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we want to be able to identify the negative thoughts, and then we want to be able to replace them, challenge those, become rational.
And guys, this is, I think, so important and so powerful at this moment because I'm having this little taste of success, but I know how relapse works. And as soon as I have a relapse, I'm like, well, nothing counted. Nothing I've ever done matters. Oh, well, this is the way it is. May as well, in for a penny, in for a pound, already wet, may as well go swimming. You know, that kind of mentality. Mm-hmm. And it comes back even whenever you weigh the same. Okay, you're not the same, right? Yeah. It turns out that temporarily the mass in your body is amounting to the same amount of numbers, but that's not where you're mentally at because now you have the value of experience to know what went wrong. Yep. Learn from it. That's not who you are. God, and I think that if there's ever something I think people struggling with weight stuff need to hear, that number is not who you are. Mm-hmm. I struggle with that. So this is great, man. This is really cool. What a cool month. I'm really glad we're doing this. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to be into it. And this is great. So, I have a freaking support group. This is fantastic. I can't believe you guys all flew out here just to support me today.
Just for you, Jim.
Man, what a great community.
Yeah, that's the next thing we got to work on with you.
Is the perception? I can't believe all these people came out here for me.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will discuss improving a child's self-esteem. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. Robert was an American explorer, politician, and soldier who, in 1856, became the first candidate of the Republican Party for the office of President of the United States. During the 1840s, when he led 5 expeditions into the American West, that era's penny press and admiring historians accorded Robert the nickname the Pathfinder. This is a good one. If you'd like to join Mr. Junior Mint and make the show possible, along with all of our friends in the studio, you can go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
There's a theme with our 2 commercials today.
Oh, interesting.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question, improving a child's self-esteem.
Hey guys, do you have any tips on improving a child's self-esteem? I was talking with my oldest son, who's 12 years old, last night, and he told me that he feels dumb and ugly a lot. He is, of course, neither of those things. He makes great grades, and he has nothing to worry about in the looks area. I talked with him, and I think he accepted what I said, but he said I'm his dad, and I have to say those things. I know I struggled with self-esteem issues as a kid, and while I don't want to project on him my own issues, I also don't want him to go through what I did. Thanks, Chris the Microscoop. Great question. Yeah. As I'm looking around the room, I see a lot of nodding heads. I think we all relate, just as human beings, right? Human beings that have lived through self-esteem stuff. Show of hands, how many of you guys, not hands because it's a radio show, how many of you guys have kids? Okay, rounding to the nearest 10. So Nathan, you officially have more children than there are humans in this room. And you've raised them all the way up. Nearly. You have a 4-year-old all the way up to a 20-something-year-old, right?
Yeah, 22.
And I imagine you've seen this, right? You've seen it where, a kid just that's probably part of being a teenager, is not knowing who you are. What advice do you have
say,
for that?
like, no, I don't have to say that. You see that kid over there? That kid's ugly. That's your little sister, and she is ugly.
No.
I don't have to say I don't have to say that you're good looking.
Yeah, I don't have to be nice to you. I hate you. You're lazy, but you're not ugly.
Right.
So Nathan, as you hear that, I imagine you relate a little bit.
Yeah, to some degree, Jacob's a little bit right. It's
don't say that.
The nonstop flattery is not something I'm going to push. I'm not going to go for that. There are realities and weaknesses, but I think the real cheat here is that I don't do it myself. I have an expert that lives in the house with me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So as much as I'd love to have an answer that's actually useful, my wife is a cognitive behavioral therapist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
you just defer?
Specializing in teenage boy trauma.
Right.
So,
you'd be like, hey, just let me hand you over here to mom, and I'm going to go golf.
Yeah, so what do we do about this one? I was an Army interrogator, so I don't have anything on that.
Yeah, and you left out 8 other things. Yeah.
I don't have. Generally, I think as long as you've got the mentality that you can express those emotions, like Chris is talking about, his kid is telling him about his emotional response.
Right.
That's more than a lot of kids already do. He's making that connection.
That's huge.
A good point.
That's huge.
Expanding on that is, clearly he's already there.
Yeah.
He's asking the questions.
And one thing, Microscoop, that I think you're hearing Nathan say, and we want to echo, is this is so normal. There's nothing wrong with your son. A 12-year-old, we all remember what it was like to be teenagers. All of us that have worked with kids. Nick, you've worked extensively with youth. I was a teacher for years. I've worked with kids. Raising kids. We've all seen this. And so it's extremely common that people are going to have that self-doubt. Hell, whether you're 12 or you're 42, you're going to have that self-doubt. But I think what Nathan just said is so key. The fact that this little human is sitting down and telling you, and the fact that you're just receiving that truth, and you can, you're allowed to authentically respond, which is, son, that's not true. But I like the way that Microscoop did respond, which is to say, but the evidence says, right, because that's what we're talking about, taking the thought to court. The evidence says you have good grades. So we don't have to wonder whether you're dumb. Like, we have a method. It's like, we have this entire scoring system to subject you to. You're doing fine, you're not a dumb guy. And then a lot of kids, I think, are going to feel ugly. And that's tough. It's always challenging. I think very few humans, even if you're the captain of the cheerleaders or if you're a model, I've literally worked with clients in the past who are have attained professional success because of how they look. And I cannot tell you, 100% of the time, I will hear them sitting there on that couch talking about self-doubt. And it's like, none of us are immune to this.
Oh, yeah. I'm the same way, too. I think with, this is very common, I think, for the adolescent kids. And because we're kind of raised in a competitive culture. Right. And so we always are going to be comparing ourselves to other people, whether that's grades, looks, athletic ability, or what.
Right.
I agree, though. I think the good thing that you're pointing out, Microscoop, is just looking at what evidence there is as far as the good grades. And even though he's saying, yeah, you have to say that because you're my dad, I think you still have to say that.
Yes.
I think you still I think it's still important to continue to send those affirmations.
Yes.
And to continue to provide those compliments, because even if he dismisses them, they do mean something to him.
Yes. And this goes back to, I think we were talking about this more on the Patreon side of the show, but Scoopitor was sharing about, and maybe actually we did get in the A block where you're talking about compliments and how they don't feel real to you.
Right.
And so like, I think that's something that we all relate to. But Nick, I'm so glad that you said that, because in the past we've talked about being a parent. And I do believe that there's value in a parent being honest with you at times and shooting you straight. But over and above that, especially when you're raising a teenager, whether that's a boy or a girl or otherwise, I'm a big fan of what you just said. Yeah, he expects you to say that because you're his dad. And I want you to say that because you're his dad. There's plenty of humans on this rock that will belittle him and tear him down and give him hard truth and false truth. You're supposed to be a cheerleader. You need to be this one person who has unconditional positive regard. That doesn't mean you can't tell them when they're wrong, but it means like whenever they have deep-seated identity doubt that whether they have value as a human being, as a parent, I want you to have a very quick message to that. Nope, I love the hell out of you. You're great. Oh, Dad, you have to say that. Maybe, but it's true. Like, I'm not faking it. I sincerely love the hell out of you. I think you're gorgeous, and I think you're brilliant. And even if they go, bah, and wave their hand at you and go, oh, whatever, and go back to their room and pout, that's fine. As the parent in the room, I still want that to be always your reaction.
I think you're still teaching them how to think critically.
Yeah.
Right? I think by constantly challenging that thought that they have,
right,
essentially you are teaching them how to challenge their own thoughts.
Right.
Which goes back to what we were talking about with the weight loss thing. You know, when you have that thought of, oh, this is terrible, I'm never going to be successful.
Right.
You have to be able, that other part of the brain has to kick in and say like, okay, well, no, let's actually be rational about this.
Right.
Give yourself a fair shot.
And wouldn't not doing it be even worse?
Yeah, you're only reinforcing it. If somebody said, I feel ugly, you're like, which is a very therapist move, because like that's always a weird one to tread on, is like, you know, whenever we do have somebody that says, oh, I just feel really unattractive, I feel like I'm not sexy, I feel like nobody desires me, we can't, ethically go, what are you talking about? I'd hit that right now.
You're totally hot.
You're totally hot. You can't do that.
Couldn't you though have them narrow down what they define as attractive?
You could, you could say, well, I mean, tell me what you think is attractive. But sadly in this Instagram culture though, and this is something we've seen a lot of with our youth, is social media has wrecked them in this regard. And I think that all of us as kids remember that it was tough. We're looking around the room, we're all about 30s, 40s. And it was tough growing up back when we didn't have smartphones and we didn't have literally a popularity contest every single day, but like that's a really tough thing. But Scoopitor, coming back to you, I think that you could very much relate to the 12-year-old in this one, in that if the kid can be taken at their word, they can't believe nice things about themselves. Relate to that for us and tell us how you've challenged yourself to accept a compliment even whenever it doesn't feel naturally true to you.
So I'm down 135 pounds, so I look totally different. I have a name badge at work that is a picture that doesn't even look like me.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I walk through, I finally got a new one because I was like, this isn't even me. I need a new one. So they got me a new one. But for a long time, people would be like, oh my goodness, you just look so different. And they would compliment me everywhere I go. And my job is customer service, desk to desk, fixing IT for them. And so I see people every day who have seen me for years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm always just like, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
But that's dismissive and awful, and like they're just like, oh, okay, you don't really want to hear that. And so until recently I've really had to believe, because I didn't believe them at first, but now I'm working through, because I think it's because I believe it myself now.
It's starting to feel more true.
And it kind of back to your A block thing, you're talking about, you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, or you don't recognize change or anything.
It takes time.
It took almost 90 pounds before I looked in the mirror and went, oh, I do feel different. I look different, and I didn't recognize myself, And I remember at Planet Fitness walking past the big mirror wall, and I was like, "Who's also walking next to me?"
Yeah,
and then I'm like, "Oh, that's my reflection."
Wow.
But it took that time and believing it myself before I could accept other people's compliments.
Which I think just. It helps drive that point home that a repeated message is going to be believed.
Yes.
Right.
Whether good or bad.
Yes.
If it's a repeated message happening over and over, it will lead to belief.
And this becomes the directive, I think, back to Microscoop. First off, you handled this exactly the way I want you to. Secondly, stay in that lane. Just like Scoopitor was saying, It's the drip, drip, drip of affirmation and evidence of change that helps a human begin to appreciate that perhaps it might be real. And kids are going to have these lulls anyway. They're going to hit these nightmare scenarios. And there's going to be situations where other kids are just terrible, and just publicly humiliate them or something terrible like that. And you being that fallback position of affirmation and understanding and empathy is everything. I think that that's huge.
Yeah. I'm just on a lot of that. I think about a month ago, I had a conversation with a coworker, and it brought to mind the idea that it seemed like a lot of interactions seemed to only happen for the purpose of getting validation.
Right. Oh gosh.
And then I started thinking about that in my interactions. My job is specifically a lot of dealing with people who are having a lot of problems almost all the time. And I started thinking in that mindset as they're coming to me, every word they're saying, if I imagine that they're looking for validation, my responses to them were a lot easier to get right.
Yes.
And at this point, like the part of me that studied philosophy in college is like, there's like a whole field on the idea that every interaction you ever have is for validation. Right now, I am saying words to you that I want validated. Right. No matter what, either from you or from someone else, every action, every, interpersonal communication of any kind.
I'll tell you what,
want that validation.
That concept is a whole show. I mean, that could be such a fun show, but Nick and I, we get to visit with, therapists in training, and so we get to talk to students and stuff. And Nick has brought it up on the show before, but one of his messages that I've stolen now, because I steal most of my best stuff is just stuff Nick said. But now that we have a show, it sucks because people know that he's the guy who said it. But your default position is a cheerleader. And some people, they hear that and think, oh, that's hollow. That's disingenuous. No. I genuinely like humans. I genuinely do. And when my fundamental perspective is, what do I like about a person? It becomes much more natural to interact with them and to just be an affirming presence in the life. And whenever you're doing that, people are like, hey, this guy's all right. Like, how bad could he be? He likes me. Like, he has great taste. And I think that comes back to that greater truth, which is that humans need that. They crave that, whether they say it or not. One of my favorite lines that you hear from people is, well, I don't care what people think about me. I don't give an F, and it's like, as a therapist, we always laugh when we hear that. We're like, oh, is that right? Like, I like hearing that in session because you're hoping I literally affirm that statement. Right. You're hoping I go, wow, you sound like a badass. And then you'll go, thank you. Thank you, I am. I'm a maverick. I don't care. You sound like that. Wow, you're a toughie. Yeah, no, I am. Thanks. It's so fantastic. Anyway, you're right, though, Nathan. And to microscope, I think the consensus you're hearing in the room is, A, we all think you handled this right. You're definitely, and don't be afraid to, you said, I'm scared I'm going to put my own insecurity on my kid. We all get that. You're not going to. You're affirming your kid. You love your kid as a parent. But the fact that you can relate in a human way, I think, is remarkably important. Don't lose that. But as Scoopitor said, the drip, drip, drip of an affirming positive message is valuable. And I think a lot of parents fear that they're like, gosh, but, the kids aren't going to hear me because I'm just their parent. Maybe I should change my message. Maybe I should try to be more raw and real. There's times where raw honesty, like when your kid's like, hey, should I sign up for this Discover card when I'm 18? And you're like, no, you're not responsible. Like, okay, like tell them that. But like all the way up to that point, I think your default position is affirmation. And I think that's actually what's called for, especially if you're the parent.
Yeah, and I would say too, just my last bit of feedback, if the issue has to do with being smart and his looks, as you're providing these affirmations, don't just focus only on his intelligence and his looks. Focus on other things that you can compliment him on, other factors, other small things that you notice throughout the day.
I am so glad you said that. Every parent listening to this, homework that you have immediately is to open up a note in your phone and write down a list of 10 qualities you like about you. Nathan just got up and went and got his phone. Write a list of 10 qualities that you like about each kid. So, Nate, it's going to take you an hour. You got a lot of kids. But I want you to write down a list of 10 qualities about your kid that you like, and then start cycling through those. Remind yourself to pull that out before you encounter your kid at the end of the night, and just make it a point to look for an opportunity to say something. I have a 4-year-old little girl, and she happens to be breathtakingly pretty. Okay, and I'm biased, but I think a lot of people would agree. And the other day, she said something to me, and she's only 4. She's just a baby. And she said something, she calls her older brother Bubby, and it's a Southern thing. But she said, Bubby is so smart, and I'm so pretty, but sometimes I'm smart too, Daddy. and you could have heard the sound of my heart smashed, and I was just like, baby, you're so smart, you're really smart. And I just realized, like, okay, I need to make a whole list of things about this kid that I like, because my default is I always remark at her beauty, but I don't want to do that. I want to point out that, like my wife, it's so funny because sometimes I'm more of a feminist than she is. The other day she told my daughter that she's bossy, and I was like, she is not bossy, she is a leader. My wife's like, okay, chill out there, Oprah. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm her mom. Like, no, she's also bossy. I'm like, that's fine. But anyway, but last point on that is I think Nick's absolutely right. Find a bunch of qualities, celebrate all of them, and great position, Microscoop. I love that you're the kind of dad that loves his son this much. Good for you, man.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will discuss bad habits of bad habits. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Kayla Lansbury. Kayla was a Democratic United States Senator from Nevada, from 1933 until 1954. Lansbury was born in Reno, Nevada, attended the University of Nevada, Reno, not Nevada State University, and was a farmer and rancher. In 1902, Kayla won election to Nevada Assembly, but in 1904, she was an unsuccessful candidate for the Nevada State Senate. She completed private law studies and was admitted to the bar in 1905. In 1906, she won election as Nye County's district attorney. She served a 2-year term, after which she relocated to Reno. You're in my head, man. I'm all about Nevada history. Is the theme that the first person was also Nevada related?
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, now it's going to mess with me, man. If you'd like to take a shot at guessing who Kayla is, you can go to patreon.com/therapy, comment under this episode, and thank you for supporting the show. Patreon.com/therapy.
We're back.
You're right.
Very old. No.
1905? Oh, this is good.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question, bad habits of bad habits.
Hi, guys. I may have written in about this forever ago, so sorry if it's a repeat. Listening to Jim start talking about his Sober October plans has really made me think about some of the things in my life that I might want to tackle in a similar way. But it brought up a question. What are some of the ways you can figure out how specific to be when we talk about scaling back or reevaluating a relationship with a particular substance or issue? To me, I see the same or similar issues manifested based on different environments. If I'm in Vegas, it's gambling. If I'm at a bar with friends, it's drinking. After work or when I'm tired, it's fast food. Any advice on whether it's better to deal with this type of thing one by one, or to make it more manageable, or whether there's something to potentially look at from a larger, more general impulse control perspective? Dan. Oh, Dan.
Yeah, that was a really good question.
Dan from Arizona.
Yeah.
Dan, is anybody playing Dan? I'm not. You and I are playing each other. Yeah. He's also in our fantasy football league. He is Pod Therapy listens to you.
Yes.
With a picture of
Yakov
Smirnoff. This is a really good question, Nick. And I think that we've had this question asked to us in a very practical way in rehabs, because people will be like, well, I'm here to stop using cocaine.
Right.
But I'm still going to drink alcohol because I don't want to take it all on at once, because I don't want to overwhelm myself. And we're usually not very enthusiastic about that.
And why is that?
Because you're still messing with the same part of the brain. Like, the same part of the brain is being triggered. You're still poorly managing your emotions. At the end of the day, you're not living life on life's terms. You're still running to something that you're using as a self-medication ability to sort of escape your reality. So, yes, you've substituted cocaine for something else, but it's the greater problem of acting out in this sort of like pleasure-seeking way.
Yeah, in the same sense that there's a reason why people are using something,
right?
And it's not just because they just enjoy it,
right?
If that's
it is that impulse control reality.
Yeah, but then there's also it's used also as an escape from something.
Yes.
Like we see now, trauma is the big thing, and how
trauma is so hot right now.
Well, I mean, as we learn more,
Hansel.
as we are learning more about the brain, we are understanding how trauma fundamentally affects the brain, and how that affects then how people cope with it, and how they use substances and able to deal with that.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about, I have a specific problem with a specific substance, and I remove that substance, but I'm not addressing the underlying issue, then it's just replace that with anything else, and you're going to run into the same problem.
Have seen a ton of this, Dan, and again, you're not saying this, but I just want to equate to what you're saying. In Vegas, as you probably have heard, marijuana is quite legal here. And that's fine. Use it recreationally. If it's not a problem for you, use it.
Quite legal.
Quite legal here. And so, what we've had is folks will say, well, I'm not doing thing X anymore, but I am smoking marijuana. And that's always a tricky thing, I think, for substance abuse clinicians like us, is because on one hand, we definitely want to affirm the theory of what we call harm reduction. Like smoking marijuana is non-lethal, compared to like using heroin is extremely lethal. So like we definitely, it's not lost on us the distance between those two behaviors. And at the same time, as your therapist, we generally want to get way beneath the surface. And what Nick just said, uncover the real reasons. What are you running from? Like, what's really going on? It's one thing to use something recreationally. We're not taking shots at that. But if you're noticing that you have what we might call addictive behaviors or problem behaviors that you're noticing manifest in lots of different areas, it's drinking here, it's gambling here, it's using things to excess, it's taking it too far. Dan, I think my first reaction to that is I would actually prefer you take a global approach to looking at all of those problem behaviors that you want to eliminate, because you're asking actually the same fundamental questions. These are all tentacles that are coming out of the same octopus. And it's that core that I'm interested in, I think, to figure it out.
I would agree. I think if they're all linked together, which it sounds like they quite possibly could.
Yeah.
If they definitely
they're
are
related.
Then you have to take a global approach, and you have to look at what connects all of these things. It is possible that maybe these aren't related.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's just these are just different things, and it's like, well, when I'm in Vegas, it's gambling.
Sure.
Because it couldn't be gambling someplace else, or it's less likely to be gambling someplace else.
Right, yeah.
Right, like if I'm in Utah, I don't have this desire to gamble.
Right.
But when I go to Vegas, then I do. Well, because gambling is here.
And for the record, Dan, you should gamble as much as possible whenever you're here. Just leave all of your money. In fact, all of our guests, I hope that you're all playing high-stakes everything. And remember, if you haven't risked enough, it doesn't hurt. So put it out there. We need to build this economy. We don't have any taxes. The school children are grateful for your sacrifice. But you're right, though.
But yeah, I mean, so it could be that they're not connected at all. But if you are noticing some common themes through all of this, and again, I think it goes back to what we always talk about with, when is something a problem? When it's causing a psychological, significantly high,
clinically significant amount of distress.
Yeah, and if that's occurring, then maybe we do need to take a more global approach and take a look at, what are the things that drive this behavior?
Right.
Is it something that you feel like is out of control? Like, so you're talking about when you're bored or when you're tired, it's fast food. Is that out of control? And what would you define as being out of control? Is it something that you do, that you recognize this is something that needs to stop?
And I think that here's the thing that's going to bother you, Dan, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're going to talk out of both sides of our mouth in this situation. Because on one hand, we recognize it's probably that multi-headed hydra, and there's this core set of things that lead to all these behaviors. And yet, as clinicians, when we're making what we call a master problem list, we have a lot of folks that come into our rehabs and they're like, yeah, and I also smoke too much. I should stop smoking cigarettes. And yet, we're not trying to eliminate smoking cigarettes at a rehab. Because generally, that's one of the ways people are going to cope. It's greatly diminished harm reduction. We're not necessarily taking a shot at that unless it's something you're really passionate about. In fact, a lot of clinicians would advise against it, even trying to eliminate that at the same time, even though your odds of success actually greatly improve if you do eliminate everything at the same time, because you're desensitizing that nucleus accumbens. However, it is okay for a person to sit down, make their master problem list, identify them in order of danger, and kind of with hopefully a little bit of coaching and guidance, identify the ones that need to be eliminated first, and then to work your way down. Because the tricks that you learn by eliminating the most high-risk behaviors, you can actually then take with you in your toolkit to take on all the other ones.
Right.
And so you don't lose anything, as Nick has been teaching me today. Every single piece of information you gain along the way only equips you to further grow and ultimately make more progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, but great stuff, Dan. Love that you're hanging in there with Sober October and taking a look at this. I think it's fantastic. It's always funny because when people are like, I have all these bad habits. My mind always flashes back to that show Dexter on Showtime where he's a mass murderer. But he always he'll go to AA and he doesn't drink. He goes to NA and they're all talking about their drug problem. And he's like, yeah, I have a problem too. And he's always relating to them. But he realizes he's addicted to it. And I just think it's a tree of things that you have to deal with. So stop murdering people, Dan. That's the thing I really wanted you to hear.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for writing in, Dan.
Keep gambling. So we want to definitely take a second to thank our Patreons, some of which are in studio with us today. Thank you, patrons, who are here with us. And we have some new folks that have joined the party. We have 2 or 3 new TheraPals. We have Vincent Pietro Paoli. I think I got that.
Nailed it.
And then we have Drew Hallige. Yeah, got that one too. Two dose for dose.
Yeah.
It looks really good. No new TheraPods to announce. But definitely thank you to our new TheraPal friends. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. And we especially want to thank our bosses, the Elite 8 and mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan clubs, the TheraProducers. Thank
Those
you.
guys.
Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, David Data Scoop Violon, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, and ex officio board members Ellie O'Dare and Dan
Martin. Special thanks, of course, to Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, who has come in to inspect what he expects. So, board members, if you'd like to hear a candid retelling of what this was like, and if we're wasting all of your money, check in with Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop. He'll give you the truth. And then, don't believe anything negative he said, because he's also a pathological liar. I just diagnosed it. It's fine. If you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited, you can hear our pregame and postgame conversations with our guests and include our spontaneous side projects like Sober October, which will not just be a side project. It's becoming the way Jim thinks about life.
It's your job.
It's my job, hopefully. Things like book club, which there's lots of good starts to. You can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. And thank you for supporting mental health. That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our guests in no particular order: Leon Kassab, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Sara, whose last name I don't know, and Scoopitor Ascending, and of course our landlords, the Ice Cream Social podcast. And thanks to those of you who wrote into our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. We've put a link in the description that you can copy and paste to a friend in need who might benefit from today's show. And of course, you can find us on social media at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Danchman.
I'm a former governor of Nevada. Did
Nope.
that person become a governor?
Nope.
Damn it.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.